senator from the great state of Pennsylvania.
Bob Roberts, fencing enthusiast, poet, folk singer, businessman, senatorial candidate. This controversial yet extraordinarily popular entertainer first appeared on the music scene 3 years ago with his debut album, The Freewheelin' Bob Roberts. Despite being assailed by the music critics as a corrupt, unfair diatribe against the 60s, the album remarkably soared to number 23 on the Billboard chart. Backed by a team of novices, without the support of a major record label, relying on word of mouth and his own team of businessmen and associates, you seem more suited to a townhouse than a tour bus. Roberts created a niche for himself in a business that at first had contemptuously rejected him. His second album, Times Are Changing Back, peaks at number 3. Quite an achievement for a journeyman folk singer that Spin magazine once called a crypto-fascist clown.
Yes, that's true, but you have the wrong pass.
I don't see the problem here.
The problem is you need to go to the police department and get the proper...
On July the 4th of this year, Bob Roberts announced his candidacy for the U.S. Senate seat in Pennsylvania. This documentary chronicles the man and his quest for election.
8 years ago, I had enough. I had seen the dreams of a generation squashed by an evil menace called drugs. I made up my mind there and then to dedicate my life to seeing that this problem end in our lifetime. I contacted my friend Lucas Hart, and I enlisted his help. And it is because of Lucas Hart's diligence and efforts that 8 years ago, Broken Dove was born. Broken Dove is hard at work fighting the war on drugs, but it will take time. We must start the war early, ladies and gentlemen. We must start the war with our children at home and in our classrooms.
Hey, mister, can I see your gun? Can I see your gun?
What makes you think I have a gun? Come on over this way. There's some great shots with the kids.
You got me, kids. All right, Jonathan, you got me. You got me. Good work, kids. I'm dead.
Here's Mrs. Roberts. Here's Mrs. Roberts, Holly and Bob. Come on over here, let's take a picture with the kids, all right? Why don't we sit right there at the table? Come on over here.
Bob is a tireless worker, unbridled energy. As his doctor, I know I tell him to slow down, he won't listen. Without his organization, Broken Dove, this clinic would not exist.
And now I want you all to say, vote Bob.
Bob! What did the teacher tell you in school today, What did the teacher tell you in school today, my child? Said it's a crime to say a little prayer. Said God's no longer wanted here. Oh, that's what the silly teacher told you in school.
Robert Roberts Jr. was born on January the 3rd, 1955, in St. Vincent's Hospital, Philadelphia. In his early years, Bob lives on a commune in rural Pennsylvania.
It was an idealistic attempt. This was the late 50s, pre-hippie. We tried to establish a community based on the idea of collective responsibility.
It's a crazy idea. It was nuts. It was an unrealistic environment for a child to grow up in.
We moved to Philadelphia when Bobby was 3.
It'll be cold today. Chilly, chilly, chilly as the leaves of autumn make way for the chill wind of winter. Early snow was reported in some mountain regions, but don't dust off the skis yet, folks. Here in Philly, it's a brisk 43. That's the news at the top of the hour, and now our own Kelly Noble interviews senatorial candidate Bob Roberts.
I must say up front that I am not a fan of your music. I find it offensive, and I'm sorry, but I wouldn't vote for you if my life depended on it. Good morning, Philadelphia. Our guest today is Bob Roberts, Pennsylvania senatorial candidate and folk singer. Our viewers are curious about where it all began. Where did it start for you?
Where did what start?
Well, was it a small colonial home with a mom in a yellow starched dress and a dad in a seersucker suit?
You're speaking of my upbringing.
Yes, your upbringing.
Well, Kelly, I came here to speak about the issues, but I will happily indulge your personality search. I was born and raised lower middle class right outside the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. My father was a fry cook, my mother a peacenik. I had no brothers or sisters. Make your judgments if you must.
He was a model student, so full of life and energy. Some of the other kids didn't like him very much. Oh, but I did, very much.
Increasing restlessness and trouble with authority figures and classmates create problems for Bob in high school, and by his senior year, his grades have fallen.
I know what it's like to be without a home. I was homeless when I was 17. Get this straight, Jack, I didn't ramble, I didn't roam. No siree, no box cars or park benches, no panhandling for me. I went straight to work. I earned enough money out of my own to enroll myself in a school of my choice, a school I wanted.
That's not quite true. Bobby enrolled himself in military college by forging my signature on a check of mine.
He was happy there. He said it was because he needed discipline, more structure in his life. He felt we offered too much freedom. And you know what? He was right.
I was trying to instill different values in him than the ones he has now. Let's just leave it at that.
Well, the 60s are, let's face it, a dark stain on American history. At no other time has lawlessness and immorality been so widespread.
You're speaking of Watergate and our invasion of Cambodia.
No, I'm not. I see. I'm speaking of you. I'm speaking of lawlessness and immorality with regard to drug use and sexual practice.
Excuse me?
Disregard in the press for the sacred institutions that have made this country what it is today.
Is social protest disregard for our laws and institutions?
Certainly it is.
And yet it is a guaranteed right in our Constitution.
So is burning the flag. Need I say more?
Yes, you need say more. Or are we to believe that what Bob Roberts wants to see in America is a compliant and silent public which respects the wishes and actions of its presidents, no matter how immoral or illegal?
Are you a communist?
Excuse me?
Self-determination. The choice to be what you want to be. And I wanted to be rich.
Roberts graduates from Westmoreland Military Academy with honors in 1977 and is selected as a candidate for a master's degree in business at Yale University. In 1980, Roberts graduates from Yale and begins his phenomenal rise on Wall Street.
Grandma felt guilty about being so rich, and it bothered her until the day she died. But I will take my inheritance and invest it with pride. Yes, invest it with pride.
You have just said that our chief executives are immoral criminals. I take offense at that deeply. I'm an American that believes intensely in morality, and I believe in the sanctity of the office of the presidency. I trust that the American public does not share your cynical, anti-American views and will cast their votes accordingly, with pride and conviction.
Thank you, Kelly and Bob Roberts, for that thought-provoking dialogue.
Because it
Good
means
morning,
you want
Philadelphia.
Americans to
We'll
cast
be
their
right
votes
back.
based on hatred and ignorance.
What is that? You're taking sides, ma'am. You're abusing your responsibility as a journalist.
I am offended by you, sir. If I ignore my feelings, I'm taking your side.
Yet isn't your job one of objectivity?
You're not talking about objectivity. You're talking about ignorance. Is he one of yours?
Sure.
Hey, brother. Does getting in on the ground floor mean checking your skin at the door?
Wait a minute. Can't black people have more than one opinion?
Oh, you're still black?
Yeah, I'd like to think so.
Dan Riley.
I guess we all have to adhere to the same militant Black Party line.
Got all your albums. They just get better and better.
It's wonderful work on the news.
Oh, you think so?
Always watch you.
Well, thanks.
You're
Thanks
now a
very
member
much.
of our campaign
There's a
team.
little-
Well, I'm vote Bob for button for you.
All right, I'm honored. Do you think I can get another one for my son?
Of course, we'll send you
All
several.
right.
Take care, Dan.
Take care. You're welcome here anytime, Bob. All right. Good luck on the campaign trail.
Bob Roberts is yet another of that faction that lives to destroy whatever good came out of the 60s. To rewrite the history of that important period. A period where the American people actually were informed and aware and realized that they had a voice. They demanded that a war end. Bob Roberts is Nixon, only he's shrewder. More complicated, this Bob Roberts. Now here's a man who has adopted the persona and mindset of the free-thinking rebel and turned it on itself. The rebel conservative. That is deviant brilliance. What a Machiavellian poser.
This land is mine.